Yay, finally I'm live. All the tests went perfectly. And then when I was setting everything up for starting the live, I don't know what I was doing. And anyways, problem solved. So here we are. Let me do something real quick before we start with a masterclass. I'm looking forward to do this. All right, so I can move this window and basically exactly that's what I need to do. And let me close this and let me check one more thing. Make sure that everything is looking good. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so here and here. Okay, this is cool. I have I have so many windows open right now, and I need them all. But the good thing is that I have them all. All right, so let's do this. This one comes here, and this one is the one that tells me that we are live. And here we go. Okay, so everything is perfect here. All right, the only thing I need to do is, yep, and click somewhere else. There we go. There we go. Since we're live, it's like cut. Let's start this again. Welcome to setting goals for success. We are live and we're ready to start this masterclass. I'm excited. If you are watching live, hit me with a hashtag live. And of course, if you're watching later in replay, then you use the hashtag replay. All right. So I'm going to talk about setting goals for success. And I am really excited to talk about the importance of setting goals and the relationship between that and being successful. Also about personal growth and how that has an effect, a relationship with the I'm sorry, I'm trying to see. I think I have. Okay, all right. Anyways, sorry about that. Setting goals for success. Setting goals for success. Let's do this. So you may be thinking, who is this person? If you don't know me personally, that is here sitting in front of us and is going to provide a masterclass on how to set goals for success. Let me tell you a little bit about me, my story. I started my entrepreneurial career, I consider myself primarily an entrepreneur, by that, a business owner. I am a college professor. I am a public speaker. And basically, I'm a teacher and a student of life. I have been very lucky, I should say, to a great extent, that I have many years of entrepreneurship. As I said, I started my entrepreneurial career 28 years ago, when a friend of mine and I did a joint venture, and we established our first business. It was a 50-50 partnership. A few years after, we basically realized that we were both ready to go solo. So basically, that's what we did. And in 1995, I started Next Step Marketing. I am very proud to say that this year, 2020, we're celebrating our 25th anniversary. So it's a long time. And especially in marketing, where the majority of the startups really don't live to celebrate 11 years. Usually in 10 years, they are gone. And I am very proud to say that my team has worked so hard that we're an established business, a seven-figure marketing business. As I mentioned as well, I teach at Miami-Dade College, different management leadership classes. I am an author as well. I had the opportunity to work in an amazing project with other amazing women. I co-author, we co-author together Breaking the Glass Ceiling, Influential Women in Business. And very proud to say that it got #2 spot in Amazon's hot new releases in September 2015. I, I am also certified by the John Maxwell team as a coach, a trainer, and a public speaker. In order to practice my public speaking skills, I joined Toastmasters, and I am a member of a Toastmasters International club. Besides having a doctorate degree in marketing, I have also continued to learn new things. And among the latest certificates that I have enjoyed taking are Women in Leadership and Essential Legal Concepts for Business Leaders, both by Cornell University. So I guess that now you feel a little bit more comfortable listening to me talk about setting goals for success. And why do I say that? Because I will tell you that one of the reasons why I have been able to maintain a business for so many years and be successful is because I learned about the importance of setting good, smart goals, as we say in business. So let's move on. Let's get into the interesting part, goal setting. Why are we talking about goals? Because the reality is that goal setting is what separates successful people from unsuccessful people. Successful people have goals. What are goals? Well, the professor in me, I always like to start going through definitions, but I like to compare definitions. And my first reference it's the Merriam-Webster dictionary, which is, in my opinion, the best dictionary there is. And it says that goal is the end toward which effort is directed. I like it because it's short and it's very similar to my own definition of goals. For me, when I think of goals, I think of a destination. I think of a direction. And there are other definitions. I included Wikipedia, which I hate to use Wikipedia as a reference, but the reality is that the majority of the people use it, and the definition is actually cool. It says goal is an idea of the future or desired result that a person or group of people envision, plan, and commit to achieve. That one is more thorough. And then to tell you the truth, goals is something that if you understand how to do it, the process becomes simple, but it requires a lot of thought. And therefore, the third definition says, and this one is from the Urban Dictionary, which I love to use, and it says, goal is a statement written down in order to achieve a state of being at a given point of time. And I like that one as well because this one says in the definition something that is very important, and it is to write them down. The others don't say anything like that, and in my opinion, that is something that makes it more valid. The effort of sitting down and writing down your goals. And then let's look at the next fact. Unfortunately, only 3% of Americans have written goals. But those that have them typically are the most successful people. Ah, that tells us something, right? Setting goals. Let's move deep in the process of setting goals. Successful people, I said, have goals. We have seen that those that actually sit down and write their goals have a better chance at being successful. But only 3% of Americans actually do it. So it brings us to the question, and maybe it has happened to you as well before. You say, why bother? If setting goals is so critically important, then why is it that so few people take the time to define exactly where they want to go? Because again, goals are really about a destination, directions. The answer to the question. I feel that there are many reasons why people don't do it. A key reason is that they haven't spent enough time thinking about what they want in life. And basically, they feel they are wasting their time setting goals because they may not necessarily have gone through the process to sit down and think about where you want to be. And there is and as I'm saying, it's not complicated. We're going through the process. Right now, I am explaining why, unfortunately, the majority of the people don't do this. Okay, so that is one of the reasons that people don't do it. Another one is that many times people think of the outcomes and they don't necessarily think about the plan of action, and there is a disconnect. Another reason, it's that they haven't been able to establish the relationship between establishing, setting smart goals and success. And yes, I said smart goals, which I am about to explain what are smart goals and how they work. But before that, I also want to explain something that is very important. If you are sitting down and you are actually watching this masterclass, it is because you are interested in a better future for yourself. Therefore, for me, it's very important to explain that there is a very important aspect as well, which is the relationship between personal development and success. You see, I mentioned previously about the relationship between goals and success. But what I'm trying to say is that setting those goals is part of a journey that we call personal development. I am using this quote from Jim Rohn because I totally agree with it. It says your level of success will rarely exceed your level of personal development, because success is something you attract by the person you become. And it's so true. We have to learn how to become leaders. And in order to do that, you have to keep that interest in learning new things and working on your personal growth. We're establishing relationships between what you do and being successful. It's logic to ask ourselves, who is successful? And I always say that it depends on who you ask, the definition of success. Unfortunately, many people, especially in our country, this part of the world, as I say, are mostly measuring success based on the amount of money that you make. And that is a mistake, because you should not measure the accomplishments that you earn, that you work on in your life, by the amount of money that you make. So it's very important that you are open to another way of measuring, of looking at success. I say that success for me, it's more based on those feelings of that we have when we earn, as I was saying, accomplishments. It's about the goals that we achieve. And here we go again, talking about goals. the positive outcome of each of your actions in a way that what you're trying to do is make your vision a reality. Successful people have goals. Successful people have a growth mentality. And that is something very important as well. What I am about to explain, which is the system of SMART goals, many of you may already have heard about SMART goals before. But one thing about SMART goals is that it's not only following the procedure, following the process, it's about understanding that you have to have a growth mindset mentality to move forward, to be able to accomplish your goals. And those people that actually are willing to learn from their mistakes and they actually see failure as an opportunity to grow are the ones that are able to set goals for success, are those that are actually successful. On the other hand, you can do the procedure, okay? But if you have a fixed mindset, okay, where you get frustrated and you give up, and pretty much you go back to what you know. If you do that and you adopt that type of mentality, unfortunately, what happens is that even if you're lucky and you become successful, you're not going to be able to maintain it. This is why all of these things are very important before I actually start talking about goals, which I'm about to. Here is some inspiration right before we start through the process. Setting goals is the first step in turning the invisible into visible. Isn't that cool? That's a quote from Tony Robbins. Ready to do this? Let me give you another reason why you should stay here through the whole masterclass and learn how to do this successfully. Because each day that you spend working without a sense of clarity, which will be provided by the goals, with a sense of clarity about where you're headed, is a step backward, a step backwards for you. There's nothing worse than being, performing, following goals that will lead us to nowhere, because they will produce outcomes that are unwanted because they were based on some emotions you had at a moment. Let's do this. The steps to set good intentional goals. Here we go. There's another important distinction in the first step, and is to understand the difference between goals and vision. And why I say that? Because for some people, goals and vision are basically the same thing. But in reality, they're two different things, very similar, and one leads to the other. A goal is basically what you want to achieve for a given time. A vision is something that you establish as your ideal state. So basically, it's when you are able to describe what that perfect state is for you, usually it stays the same. So this is something that rarely we change, even if goals are modified, because we start with goals. And as I was saying, goals are what we want to achieve, but goals are not permanent. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that I will go over is the fact that goals need to be reviewed. Okay. And many times they need to be rewritten. So goals can evolve and goals can be modified, and sometimes it should be modified, while the vision is that ideal state. So ideally in life, we should have a vision, and out of that vision, we should trace, not trace, but list our goals. Step one, let's get dirty. Okay, identify your goals is a first step. Here is where you're actually going to sit down. And as I like to call it, you're going to do a brain dump. You are just going to write everything that you want in your life, and include everything you can think of. And the idea actually is to stop once you cannot think about anything else. The way that I learn a way of doing it, and I enjoy it, and I do it sometimes, and I take a journal and I sit down and write pages. Why are we doing that? Because that can help us establish what is the big picture of what we want to do with our life. And I recommend for those of you that are familiar with Wheel of Life to actually use one. Basically, the idea is that you think of what you want in life, thinking of different areas that are important in your life, that are part of your lifetime goals. And basically, I just included an example of a Wheel of Life. This one has more pieces than the ones that I listed. But the suggestion I have for those that are starting and wanting to keep it shorter, I recommend that you think of family and relationships, that you think of your professional career, that you think about your aspects related to health and your physical body. I always think myself of education. What am I going to do to keep learning? Finances. Where do we want to be in terms of money? And very important, spiritual. And for me, that is something that I definitely work on, and has my priority as many of these other aspects that are necessary in life. Okay, so after you have listed all those things that you want and have gone through it and study and basically absorb, the next thing that you should do is to, based on the main areas of your life that are important, set the priority. of which areas are the most important. And basically, based on that, you're going to set smaller goals that you need to complete in order to reach your lifetime base, your lifetime plan based on a year. And we're going to break it down even more: 6 months, 1 month. You see, one of the problems that people have when they set goals, and those that already know how to use SMART goals, is that they forget that there is another step, which we'll talk about soon, which is take action. And so that's why we work it down from a year to a month plan, because you need to set your priorities. You need to know what goals are the ones that will motivate you to get closer to achieving that vision that you have. And basically, for the top priorities, choose the top three and write them down. And write them down. And this is how you're going to write them. Here is the SMART goals format. Maybe if you have heard about SMART goals before, have seen one of the multiple varieties of the model, I should say. And SMART basically is an acronym, SMART. And the first one, the S, stands for either being specific, significant. I basically, in the majority of them, I have included how I've seen it in the different varieties of SMART goals. The terms may change a little, but the concept is still the same. So the S starts it stands for specific and significant, the M for measurable, the A for actionable, the R for realistic, and I say results oriented, and the T for time bound. Let's go over each of them real quick. So let's talk about the S for specific. The more specific that you are with goals, the better it is. One of the problems that sometimes people have when they set their goals is that they just set something very broad, and unfortunately so broad that doesn't give you direction. I'll give you an example. I want to be happy. I want to be rich. Those are way too broad. How are you going to use that as direction? It's basically, so you have to be as specific as possible. And also, you want to set intention. Goals need to be challenging. No one wants to set goals that are easily achieved, because then, well, what's the purpose of them? Honestly, those are the things that you are going to end up doing and achieving anyways. Goals should be specific and should be challenging. If you use those two elements, you have a higher chance for success. Measurable. For every goal that you have to have an outcome and a performance for measurement. In other words, what we're saying here is that measurable means that it's tangible. There must be a way that we can establish to measure progress. And that it's super important, because it tells us how well we're doing, or how bad we're doing. Um, so it's very important. And this is something that many times we leave out. And uh, there are two ways that help when you are writing your goals to make them tangible or measurable. And that is include amounts like money. I want to increase the annual revenue by 5%. Okay. And also, the other way is by establishing dates. It's also very important. How long are you going to give yourself to accomplish that goal? The A for actionable, achievable. We want to, when we're setting the goals, we want to write them in a way that it leads us to take action. So, a good way of setting goals in that way is by writing the goal starting as soon as possible with a verb. So let's say that the goal is to grow 15% within a year. How are we going to do that? So when we are working on the actionable part of the goal, here is where we think of the action. And an example will be, I will post to our social media sites once a day, which is the action that you need to take in order to accomplish that 15% of growth that you want in a year. Another example will be, I will follow up with everyone who attends one of our sales meetings or webinars. Okay, that is how you set them in an actionable way. The R for realistic, relevant, and results oriented. As I was saying before, no one sets goals that are easy because it doesn't make sense. Neither makes sense to set goals that are unrealistic. Goals should be based on your ability to use your resources, your strengths. And therefore, this is a process where you really have to be a critic of your abilities and understand that maybe you don't have all the skills that you need for where you want to be, but that's part of it. Right now, being realistic and establishing goals that will help me get those skills, taking classes, finishing my diploma, whatever it is at where you are. The point is that the goals must be not only realistic, but they also have to be relevant to the vision that you have. Make sure that there is an alignment with that. Okay? And the importance of doing this is that, for example, let's just say that your vision is to become a famous singer, okay? And perhaps the reality of you being able to do that are not necessarily the best, but let's say you consider let me create a YouTube channel where I can just, jam and do my thing. And honestly, if I do that, I'll be happy because I'll be accomplishing my goal, which is to sing in front of people. And all of a sudden, that happens. But the only way that you can be realistic about them is if you actually set the ways that you are going to have to go, walk through in order to get those uh, goals. Time bound, tangible. That's the last letter of the acronym SMART. And it stands for, as I said, time bound and tangible, which is one of the most common mistakes of people when we set goals, that we forget to establish a time frame. It's very important that for that action plan that you're going to work on, to make sure you understand what amount of time it's going to be established. I'm not going to say required, established to set, I mean, to not set, to accomplish those tasks, those goals that you're going to keep breaking them down. Okay, so it's important to have a time frame for the performance outcomes. In other ways, how you're going to measure and how often you're going to measure. And the feedback loops refers to that. So if you're working on losing weight, you have to be more specific than that. And you have to say, like, I want to lose 20 pounds in the next 6 months. And the feedback loops would refer to how often am I going to measure those results? In other words, how often am I going to step on a scale? Am I going to do it every day? Am I going to do it every other day? Am I going to do it once a week? You see, and that is very important in the process because SMART goals need to be measurable, but we also need to understand the time frame when we are going to evaluate those. Let's do an overall, okay, and put everything together of what a goal should look like. So let's say that when you were working on the first step of setting the goals and you use the wheel of life, or you follow one of the suggestions that I say. So for one area of your life, your career, you establish that the goal will be to be the vice president of marketing at the organization that you work for. So that's your career goal, okay? But we're going to work on establishing goals that are closer to that, okay? And closer here would be a 5-year plan. And you establish that in order to become the vice president of marketing at the organization, you first need to be a category manager. And you realize that before you become a category manager, you have to be a product manager first. So basically, you break this down and you say, okay, in 5 years, what I want to do is I want to be able to have accomplished becoming a category manager. In a year from now, a product manager. And basically, the idea is to keep breaking it down. And you ask yourself, what is it that I need to do? to become a product manager in a year from today, and you start thinking about where you are right now, and pretty much let's jump now to the bottom and read the last one that it says the 1 week goal. So let's look at it from what you are going to do, the action that you're going to take to start with this next week. And you say, I'm going to book a meeting with a product manager to get to ask questions about what they did to get to the positions that they are. What are their responsibilities? And therefore, you get to prepare. So my goal for a month from now would be to actually have taken the action, to get together to talk over the phone with a product manager that has been able to give you information with regards the minimum requirements, or the ideal requirements, I should say. So for you, that means that maybe it's time to go back to school and finish the last semester that you have been procrastinating for some time because you have started doing other things. And now you have realized that it's a good time to go back to school for 6 months and be done with your studies. And that's how the goals work. It's basically establishing a ladder of steps of steps. So the first step was all about setting goals. And in the process of setting goals, I told you about the method of using SMART goals. Now that we have talked about that, I'm going to tell you about other steps that I have been integrating, but that it's important to establish them as basic steps, just like the same, with the same importance as the first step. So the second step is to sit down and write all the benefits, all the possible rewards, anything you can think of a positive outcome if you accomplish those goals. Okay? What is going to happen to you? What in what way your life is going to be changed by this? And the reason why you are doing this is because people talk about motivation. I always say motivation doesn't have to be there. It's about taking action. And when you are sold on those benefits and you are clear about the reasons why you're doing it, you are going to be able to keep pushing forward, which makes sense when you see the next step. The third step is to list all the possible obstacles, objections that may get on the way. Like, for example, time and money. Let's say that I make one of my personal goals to read X amount of books a year, okay? And I start with the process. I start buying books. I join a books club. But along the way, I realized that I didn't realize before that this whole book club and buying books is expensive, and I don't have the money anymore. That is one of the most common excuses. The other one is time. I didn't have the responsibilities that I now have back then, but now I don't have the time. This is life. That will always happen. That will always happen. Therefore, this is why it's so important to do step number 2, because it will help you to deal with these obstacles and these objections. You need to be sure of why you're doing what you're doing. Step 4, list the skills and knowledge to achieve your goals. And here is where you do research, okay? It's important to understand what is required from you. And basically, that should help you to establish your goals for the next 5 years. Because by researching, you will get the information. And basically, it's just the next step, establishing a plan of action. Well, coming soon. Step 5, identify people and groups to work and collaborate with. That is a very, very important recommendation. You are watching this live masterclass in my Facebook group, Entrepreneurial Vision. And I am sure you're here because you understand this concept. When we get to work with people that are like-minded people, it really helps us to work on what we're doing, because it's people that pretty much have the same goals, or I want to say the same purpose, the same disposition, or perhaps the same habits, and therefore it's a good thing to establish your tribe, as I say, people that you feel comfortable with, that you can share about what you're doing, and you can communicate and receive feedback. What you're doing right now, it's very important, but keep in mind that one of our goals should be to keep learning. And in that process, when you are identifying the people you want to work with, I want to refer to one of my mentors, John Maxwell. And John Maxwell is the leadership guru of the world. And he says that if you go into a room, if you walk into a room and you find that yourself, that you are the most intelligent person in that room, basically that you are in the wrong room, that you should leave and find a room where the other people are smarter, and that should be your room. Hope you understand. I'm sure you understand. And so the last step is to plan and establish the actions that you need to take. Okay? So what you need to do is break down the goals into smaller goals, as you saw me do in the example of the person that has its goal, a professional goal to be a vice president of marketing. And in that example, we even broke it down to the first step, which was to do research, call, and have a conversation with a product manager that could provide valued information on how they got there. So understand this. Once you have your goals, you really have to break them down and take them as far as you can, okay? Because the idea is to build a ladder that is going to be based on small steps. Steps are basically action, okay? So think of the small actions that you need to accomplish in order to accomplish a big step, okay? Another very important thing that you're going to do when you're working on that plan of action, make sure you establish how you're going to measure your progress and how often you're going to measure your progress. Reward yourself for every little win, okay, for your successes. But please, very important, and this is the attitude, this is a mindset, okay? Don't punish yourself for failure. Let me repeat that again. Don't punish yourself for failure. If you understand that if you fail, you actually earn by understanding the lesson. In every failure, there is an opportunity to understand more about yourself, to understand more about the progress. And that's the type of a mindset that you need to have. Become obsessed with action and implementation. As I say it, this has nothing to do with motivation. People struggle with motivation. No, this is about taking action. And the way that you're going to take action is by establishing those good, smart goals that are following all this. And after you do that, you sit down and you go over all the benefits and you think about the possible problems that you're going to have to deal with. And you start networking and creating that your tribe that will support you, that will help you push yourself more and more. Honestly, as long as you keep taking action, you are going to move forward. I'm almost done, but before I finish, I want to tell you some tips about how to make all this process of setting goals more successful. There are certain skills that you will need to develop yourself in order to be successful with the goals. And that is ideally to understand and get better in planning. In motivation, as I said, only works if you actually understand that self-motivation is taking action. Time management. How are you going to manage the time? You have to be more successful about what you do and be more efficient. I will tell you that one way of doing that, and this is going to be very dramatic for some people, but because we try to multitask all the time, and some people are better, but to tell you the truth, that's the worst thing that you can do because it reduces your effectiveness. And when you are doing many things at the same time, you cannot give attention to it. So in one of the things that you're doing is not going to have the results that you want. So that's something that to keep in mind. You are going to have to learn to be more flexible. Okay. Um, some of us are stubborn and we need to embrace more flexibility, and we have to be more flexible, not to a point that we're stretching it so much that the goals have become a joke. Okay. But as I was saying, goals need to be revised. And as life happens, maybe you now have other opportunities where the goals can actually become something bigger than what they were before. Because, as I was saying, goals are a destination, but it's not a final destination. Your vision should be your final destination. Goals are temporary destinations because once we have accomplished that goal, we set higher goals, new goals. And the last skill is commitment. You have to commit to yourself. And that is probably the hardest commitment because it's like lying to yourself. Doesn't make any sense, right? Also, I want to tell you about the most common mistakes that people make when they are setting goals. The first one, I said it when I was defining goals, it's not writing them down. That's a step that is necessary to be able to have success. Another problem is having too many goals, which is why I said just choose the top three. And sometimes three can be a lot, honestly. Sometimes we just need to just concentrate at least this year on a specific area of our life that we really need to see move forward. But it's important to break it down because when you have too many goals, you don't know where you're going. You're trying to move forward, but you're doing just a little everywhere, and basically you're not progressing. What else? Not establishing challenging goals that will push you forward. As I was saying, some people feel like they don't want their goals to be that challenging because they feel that they're going to get their motivation from earning those goals. And it's like Michael Jordan going back to play against his high school team. Things that really will not push them forward in their careers at all, unless of course the purpose is just to have fun and something completely different. But I think you get the point that I'm trying to make. Then the next one, a common mistake is not aligning the goals with your vision. And that is also a very common goal. I mean, a very common mistake that we don't actually take the time to think about how that goal will move you forward to what you want to accomplish. And if you truly think about that, then you probably won't have to go through that mistake. What are the next steps? Well, you already know how to set good SMART goals for success. You know that it's more than setting the goals. It's about establishing a plan of action. And also, I want to say, with regards to taking action, that even if you're agreeing that yes, it's important to set goals, but I'm lazy. And to tell you the truth, eh, I can think of them, and if they're in my head, that's good enough. But to actually be able to accomplish this, what I think you should do, my recommended next step for you, is to ask yourself, what can I do today that will take me closer to my goals? Ask yourself that question. Because honestly, the cost of not taking action today is that you will end up living the life that you have right now forever. You remain forever trapped in this stage. And I don't think that's what we want. And if you are here in this group, it's because you have an entrepreneurial vision, you have a growth mindset. And that's what we're doing here. This is the first masterclass of many others that I will be providing through the year. It's about helping others move forward and using marketing and managerial skills that I have learned. I'm still learning throughout the way. My next master classes will be Marketing 101 for entrepreneurs. That's going to be a very interesting one. I'm going to go over what marketing really is. And yes, we have to talk about social media, but marketing is not social media. How to understand the good essence, principles of marketing. Also, I want to provide a masterclass on leadership, how to become a person of influence. I'm looking forward to do that one as well. Leadership is one of topics that I am truly passionate. I also will create a class about entrepreneurial success. So there's a lot more to come. For those of you that want to learn a little bit more about me, you can visit my website, marifemendez.com. And remember something before we finish with the content of the masterclass. I want to quote John Maxwell, who is one of my mentors. And John said, the challenge of leadership is to create change and facilitate growth. That's what I'm doing here. That is why I have taken the time to go through how to set smart goals, good goals that will help you accomplish success. This is a topic that I'm passionate about. I have books and many other materials that I am very happy to share with those of you that are interested. Again, if you watch this live, please hashtag live. If you're watching on replay, hashtag replay. Let me see if I have any questions before we go. Thank you so much for the greetings that most of you said. I am glad that this is actually going, it went well. See you soon. Stay tuned for more.